Last of Summer Wine was a BBC TV sitcom that ran for 37 years from 1973 all the way through to 2010, making it the longest running TV sitcom in the world. It ran for 31 series over 295 episodes, and it centred on three elderly gentlemen and their youthful antics. Now, cars weren't a centre point of this programme, but the ones owned by the couple Wesley and Edie Pegden actually were, and people seem to remember them. I keep getting nagged. Wesley had a Land Rover and Edie had a Triumph Herald. So let's see what I found out. Now, Wesley Pegden never seemed happier than when he was under the bonnet of his Land Rover or another car that he was fixing, covered in oil and grease. It meant he was getting away from Edie and her attempts to clean him up. Now, I've got to be honest, continuity doesn't seem to be a particular strong point with the makers of this programme, and let's be honest, they didn't expect some idiot in his garage 40 years later to try and track the history of these vehicles. So there's 2 points to this. One, there's quite a lot. There's 8 registration numbers that I've found that appeared on screen, but I think there's more vehicles that were actually had one of these plates put on them over the series to try and add some continuity, because even in the same programme you can see there's a change of vehicle, but the registration plate has actually stayed the same. So what I'm going to do, let's bring the list up on the screen and we'll quickly run through them. From the top, you can see the top 2 been off the road, one over 40 years, the other one over 25 years, so we can assume there's been scrapped. The next one, BVH 210A, doesn't appear anywhere. I assume that one has been scrapped, which is why it's not on DVD records. Next one, UKH 45R, little bit of hope on this one. Last tax expired in January 2011, and it did actually have a V5 in 2011 as well. 14 years, not impossible, it could still be about. And then there's WCW 684Y. Now, I did find a post by Land Rover Centre Huddersfield saying that this was one car that they'd had and loaned to the programme, and I believe they loaned others as well. But this one, last tax expired in December 2003, and the last V5 was April 2004. So fairly safe to say that one's scrapped. OSX 666P, we can go straight to my car check. Yep, that one was scrapped in 2008, so that one's dead and gone. MOG 612X, now this one's a little bit of an oddity. I think this was a fake plate just put on one of probably many Land Rovers, because this registration is actually from a Citroen GSA. I'll put a quick picture on the screen for those that can't remember what they look like. That car itself has been untaxed since 1992, so I very much doubt that's been a plate change. I think that was just a fake plate. And finally, Q126JWX. That one, last tax expired in 1999, and the last V5 changed July 97. So again, I think we're fairly confident that one's been scrapped, but it was spotted in January 2011 near Manchester in a field parked up with a number of vehicles from the Emmerdale TV programme, but they did look like they were probably just about to be scrapped. So I'm afraid doesn't appear to be any of Wesley's Land Rovers that have survived. Now, if you're really interested in diving deeper in the detail of which Land Rover and which programme, I can highly recommend the channel Upstage by a Dog, a chap that has done a load of programmes on Last of Summer Wine and lots of different topics, and you can dive in and for a lot more detail. Now on to our other car, the Triumph Herald convertible, driven by Edie Pegden, who was played by Dame Thora Hird, one of our national treasures. And part of her character, Edie, was always moaning about the fact that Wesley had been moving around parts in the car, such as the gears. And the other interesting thing I discovered is apparently Dame Thora Hird never had a driving licence. Anyway, onto the car. And yeah, continuity, again, was not a strong point, shall we say. That the Triumph Herald came generally with 2 fronts. It had the 1360 later front, which was like with the frowny bit over the headlights, and the earlier version, the 1200, with the chrome rims to the headlamps. And this car, the first one we're going to look at, appeared with both. So again, they didn't expect me to be looking for them 40 years later. Now, the original car was WRH 132J, and this car was restored back in 2005-2006, and apparently it was originally white, so may have been painted red for the programme, don't know. but it was restored back then, but then not used afterwards. And it then appeared for auction in 2011 at H&H in Buxton, and apparently it last been run back in 2006, and it came with no brakes, but apart from that it was ready to go. It went for the auction and sold, which I think is a fairly fair price considering it had been restored, $4,781. So I think someone got a bit of a bargain there. Now, following that sale, between 2012 and 2018, it was MOT'd annually over those 6-7 years, and it did a grand total of 176 miles. So most of that must have been probably to the MOT station and back. But following the last one in 2018, it then changed hands in July 2018, as we can see on my car check. And then a year later, it changes hands again in August 19 to the current owner, who is a chap called Graham. Now, he's done a fair amount of work on the car, according to the posts I've seen that he's put on the various Last of the Summer Wine forums, and has got the car back up and running, and it's on the road. And he was able to take it to the 2023 celebration of 50 years of Last of the Summer Wine. And on their Facebook page for this event, they posted a couple of pictures of it, and it's looking absolutely in cracking condition. So Graham's done a great job with that car. And one final look at my car check. Yeah, it's got valid tax on it, so it's up and on the road. And of course, it's MOT exempt at this age. So yeah, it's been loved and enjoyed. On to the next one. In the later series, the registration number of the car Edie was driving changed. It went to CXE604J. And this car, earliest I can find for it, because after the programme it disappeared for quite some time. It had a change of keeper back in 2016. And I did find a post on one of the Facebook groups mentioning that somebody's friend had bought it and they were just starting to restore it. And lo and behold, in June 2011, it appeared at Tennant's Auctioneers in Leyburn in North Yorkshire, so not far from where the programme was filmed. Having been fully restored, had a fresh MOT on it, and of course 2021, it was an electronic one, and that was the first one it had, so it hadn't had an MOT since at least 2005. And it came up there, it had an estimate of £10,000 to £15,000, and it actually sold through, exceeding the estimate, for £16,500. Now, fairly quickly, this car appeared for sale, it looks like, all over the internet. There were Facebook ads for it, there were eBay ads for it. It also appeared on the dealer site of Fairmont Classic Cars down in Brentwood in Essex. It started off being offered at about £25,000, and over the following year it gradually dropped. Lowest I found for it was £22,750 on this eBay ad. Now, there was no change of keeper during this period for it, so we can take it didn't sell, and it reappeared back at auction in June 2022 with H&H at the Imperial War Museum, and that's where it sold for $15,600, so a bit less than it went through for at the previous auction. And if we look at my car check, we can see there are change of keepers that exactly match the date of both of those auctions, so we know it has changed hands. But since then, it's pretty much gone to ground. It doesn't seem to be making any public appearances or notoriety that I can see, but we can see that it does have valid tax on it, and of course at this age it is MOT exempt, so it looks like it's out there and being loved and used, but not being very public. And one other car that was been spotted is registration number GJN107D. This was where the registration plate hadn't been changed for one of the main, what should we call them, hero cars. And this car had a change of keeper back in 2008, we can see, and it also had a change of keeper in 2017. So there is a possibility that one is still about. On to the final car. Now, our final car to look at is WYO626H, and this was a lesser used car. It was on screen using one of the main two plates, but nonetheless was a vehicle used in the programme. Now, this car's been off the road since 1993, so normally you wouldn't have a lot of hope, but I did find this post on the Triumph Sports Sits Club along with a couple of pictures, and there appears to be a little bit of an interesting story. Once the BBC had decided to dispose of this vehicle, it was purchased by a Triumph Sports Sits Club member who then realised it was more rotten than what he wanted to deal with, so passed it on to the chap that made this post, who paid the princely sum of £200 for it, so it gives you an idea of what sort of condition it was in. And he at the time was involved with the Hyundai dealership in Belfast, and they had previously been a Triumph dealership and decided they wanted this car to be like a little showpiece in their showroom. Nice idea. So they sent it off to be restored bodily wise, and apparently it came back, it looked absolutely stunning. There's some pictures here of where it's just been having its sort of rolling chassis bits put in, but you know, it does look a cracking. According to the poster, it did look like new. The only thing was that when they fitted the running gear and the engine gearbox, yep, fine. Once they tried to fit all the trim and that, discovered the panel gaps were all completely wrong and weren't able to fit the trims and complete the car. At this point, the enthusiasm for the project seems to have died off. It was left outside under a tarpaulin for about 5 years and then disappeared off for storage. And apparently now that Hyundai dealership, is it Hyundai? Sorry, Hyundai. That Hyundai dealership has now been demolished, so that obviously was the end of the interest in that. However, it's not quite the end of the story. It changed hands in 2018, and this picture has resurfaced on the internet of it looking very close to completion, needing sort of another headlight and so on. So it does look like this one is going to reappear. So it looks like 3 of them at least have survived, and maybe the 4th has as well, who knows. I really hope you've enjoyed that little trip down memory lane for all our little tea time viewing on a Sunday night and the little chuckles these guys used to produce for us. As ever, if you've enjoyed watching, I'd love it if you'd hit that like button, and even more if you would hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you next time.